Happy Sunday, listeners. This is Bridge Sky, your host tonight, as you are listening to K.I.S.S. Recovery 101. We've relocated. We're in a new room, so it'll be interesting to re-listen to this later and hear how much of a size change it is when the room's bigger. There's no any studio fancy stuff, but maybe it'll make it more interesting and more effective. Here we go. So anyway, tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, but like the title of this show is, K.I.S.S, keep it simple, stupid. So we're going to keep it simple. And Recovery 101, the basics. So neuroplasticity, see, I can't even say it right. It's a big word. And I remember hearing it many times, but in one ear, out the other. And so for you listeners tonight, we're going to dig deep into it, simplify it, and make it correlate and understandable to anyone especially new to the wonderful world of recovery. And I have the perfect guest with me tonight we get to go have this wonderful conversation, and hopefully some of what we say might resonate. So guest, would you please introduce yourself? Just give your name, a little spiel about yourself, and welcome.
Hi, my name's Holly, and I am in recovery. I've also had a stroke, and one of the things that I noticed about my brain was that it was different. And so today when we're talking about neuroplasticity, I might be able to poke in a few ideas from my own perspective. And now it's time for Bridge.
And I'm super excited for your very knowledgeable, educated perception on things. Because I'll tell you, I don't have any degrees, okay? I don't have any formal education, any substantial certifications to say about brain science. However, I do have some decent certifications just in recovery. And what I love about doing my own research and education just on the wonderful world of the internet, YouTube specifically, is I get to learn these things at this lower level, not lower, first initial learning experience. And what I love about that is I get to share that with other folks too, again, new into all this wonderful information. So like in the title, recovery is not only, the how, okay? So yes, the how you get recovery is important, but really I've found that it is so important to understand why. Okay, and in my trainings, my Recovery Coach Academy trainings, we really spend a lot of time practicing reflective listening. So listening is one thing, but really for me, that reflective piece is actually hearing what the person shared with you. And so I think that's important. And so neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to restructure or rewire itself when it recognizes the need for adaption. What does that look like for people with a substance use disorder, or a few of those? And years of failed treatment attempts, experts now believe negative thought patterns that resulted from interrupted or impaired neuroplasticity processes can actually be rewritten, and making new paths now in our brains. But that initial ability to even understand that and start to do that, for me, I needed to know why I even had these paths wired in my brain, because before I knew anything, I just thought I was a messed up person. I'm born this way. Nobody's ever going to understand me. I can't explain to anyone, especially myself, why I can't just do what everyone else can do. I can't just do what I know is right. I want to, make these certain decisions that I know aren't going to have good consequences, good, like a more permanent solution. But I could not, at that time, understand why I kept going right back into that rabbit hole. Okay, so I'm going to play this amazing clip. Do you like clips? Do you like the world of YouTube and TED Talks and any of that, Holly?
I love the tube. I am ready.
Okay, so we're just going to jump right into the tube. I talk about him a lot. I'm definitely a fan. Dr. Gabor Mate. This is a shorter clip of his full clip. So if you go on YouTube right now, I want to say Dr. Gabor Mate is a genius, and he's my guru, but he really understands addiction. And so if you go on YouTube and you just search the channel's Fight Mediocrity, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I haven't subscribed yet. But the title of the video is The Best Explanation of Addiction I've Heard, Dr. Gabor Mate. So here we go. We're going to jump right into it.
Addiction is not a choice that anybody makes. It's not a moral failure. It's not an ethical lapse. It's not a weakness of character. It's not a failure of will. It's just how our society depicts addiction. Nor is it an inherited brain disease, which is how the medical tendency is to see it. What it actually is, it's a response to human suffering. And all these people that I worked with had been severely traumatized as children. All the women had been sexually abused. All the men had been traumatized, some of them sexually, physically, emotionally neglected. And not only is that my perspective, it's also what the scientific and research literature shows. So addiction then is actually, rather than being a disease as such or a human choice, it actually is, it's an attempt to escape suffering temporarily. By the time I went to work there, I had already been in family practice for 20 years. I'd seen a lot, and I was quite attuned to the impact of early childhood experiences on adult psychology and adult brain physiology. But I just hadn't seen the depth and the degree until I went to work down there. So really it dramatized and confirmed for me, made it very palpable how addictions are a response to suffering, and that what people need in response to addiction is not judgment and not simply symptom control. They need to be helped to heal from their trauma, because it is all about trauma. The media, the television, cultural depiction of addicts is usually as desperate people, but without showing why they're desperate. So all that shows is the desperation for the drugs. There's no indication of what's driving that desperation. And hence you see them behaving in all kinds of dysfunctional ways, aggressive or manipulative or unpleasant. But again, there's no three-dimensional sense of the reality of these people as to what that's really all about for them. Is it possible to cure people? You're speaking from the Western model, where I am the expert and you're the one with the disease, and I'm going to cure you like you cure a piece of meat. You know, no. The answer to that question, framed that way, is no, it's not possible. If you're asking, is it possible for people to heal from trauma sufficiently that they don't have to keep escaping into addictions to lessen the suffering of their trauma? Yes, that's entirely possible. But the question is, under what conditions is that possible? And under the conditions that obtain in London, UK, or Vancouver, British Columbia, or in New York, or any place, under the conditions that obtain socially, legally, and from the perspective of medical practice, it's hardly a likelihood, because we're approaching it from the wrong direction and with the wrong perspective. If I could constantly demonstrate that with this particular population, I could affect a 5 or 10% success rate of getting people to leave their addictions behind, I'd be considered to be a genius, because our results are so poor. When I say ours, I don't mean ours specifically in Vancouver. I don't mean that. I mean the overall treatment model for addiction is so poor in succeeding with the most affected segments of the population. So, I mean, addictions are like everything else on a spectrum. So a lot of people do heal from addictions. But the most inveterate, most entrenched addicts, they have the hardest time. And they're also the ones whom society gives the hardest time, so that it makes it even harder to help them. Never mind the...
Okay, I'm going to cut it right there. Woo, Holly, what do you think just of that clip? What is your first initial thoughts or insights?
My initial thought is that that was an encompassing view of maybe many types of addictions, not just alcoholism, for example. Like alcoholism is like a poison, and in my mind, you might be predisposed to having trouble with it, but the longer you drink, the more your body might not, reacts differently to the poison, and pretty soon maybe you'll have trouble with it. When I listened to the doctor talk about, what's his name?
Dr. Gabor Mate. Get closer on that mic.
Yes. When he was talking about how does it work, he was thinking, I think he's thinking about many types of drugs. And the idea of human suffering and using drugs to alleviate suffering is it's really hard to argue against that. That, I mean, there are so many people that run into so many different things, and all of us handle things differently. Some of us are really sensitive, and that can be not a good thing if you're drinking or using like hardcore drugs or even marijuana.
Well, and I like, in NA we say alcohol is a drug and therefore, part of addiction, and everyone is welcome. What I understand, though, from my own experience is when you really break this down, Dr. Gabor Mate is hands up. I love that he says addiction is a response to suffering. And like you're saying, I agree. There's many levels. And like he said, I love that word spectrum, right? Because there's many different, you might have had a really great childhood, so you thought, but something could have been wired in that you didn't even know of. It could be something simple as bullying. Dr. Gabor Mate's story, he has a shopping addiction. Okay, so yes, this might not seem so easily like connected, but what he explains is when he was a baby, his mother, this was during World War II. So as a baby, his mother wasn't able to keep him, first off. She couldn't comfort him. Her doctors would tell her, when he's crying, let him cry. He's going to cry it out. So there's a lot of things that could have happened as a baby that you didn't even realize formulated how your brain has wired itself. And what I like to think in my own view is like, that's how my brain, how I am today, was wired to protect myself. And then with the addiction piece, that's how my brain kind of learned really quickly to escape and numb myself and not deal with a lot of emotional trauma or just even day-to-day life. A lot of things I immediately will disassociate, or I will just keep buried. I'll just start letting it, this is not a big deal. I'll just distract myself from it until it starts to overwhelm myself. And before, substance use for me was like also this release. Not a healthy one. So what I like, so we're going to get into this article I found. The website is newchoicestc.com. And again, after the show, I'll post both links that I've mentioned. Oh, sorry, we got excited. Holly, we got lots of participation tonight. Okay, listeners, let's see. Facebook user says, hi, girls, love you both. Ooh, Facebook user, we can't see who you are, but we love you too. Oh, Barry's on. You remember, you met Barry last at our book club meeting.
Hi, Barry.
He got his breakfast. Hi, Barry. Great stuff, he said. Facebook user said, desperately seeking comfort. Oh, yes, 100%. Another one said, can I get the link? Oh, yes, I will post the link. Oh, Pink Cloud Foundation, Travis is on. Great topic tonight. Thanks for bringing and sharing your insight, Holly. And Gabor Mate, they're talking to each other. Gabor Mate found it. Okay, fantastic, yes. And basically, you do a YouTube search for Dr. Gabor Mate, you're going to get lots of great stuff. He goes into everything. So neuroplasticity, that's what this website, if you go to, link says. It can be viewed as a general umbrella term that refers to the brain's ability to modify, change, and adapt both structure and function throughout life and in response to experience. So I found this, Holly's going to read this article here because I want to talk about where stigma makes a difference on how people are treated or are able to even heal from that trauma. So you want to go ahead and read that? I'm going to put the mic right in front of you.
Okay. This is Holly. I'm reading How Neuroplasticity and Addiction Recovery Are Intertwined. And Bridge was saying that she's going to post the link. It's newchoicestc.com, newchoicestc.com. That'll come. That link will come. So, within days of suffering a debilitating stroke, Anne began rehabilitative therapy. Though initially severely impaired and timely and intensive rehab, Anne recovered the ability to walk and talk. Cole, a toddler on the autism spectrum, begins intensive behavioral therapy, and he learns to communicate and navigate school in a general education setting. Despite dealing with intractable depression, Martha is able to experience peace of mind after starting a daily yoga practice, along with conventional therapy. While each of these examples may seem miraculous, what they actually represent are triumphs of neuroscience. The human brain, once regarded as a static organ when fully developed, was believed to be unable to recover completely from accident or injury. We now know that the brain has the capability to heal itself when damaged. This amazing attribute is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is a term that describes the brain's ability to adapt by creating and strengthening new neural pathways. Though the connection between neuroplasticity and addiction recovery is not a totally new concept, as time goes on, more and more research emerges showing the brain's ability to heal itself, and promising science-based addiction recovery programs continue to emerge. When used to guide treatment for substance use disorders, neuroplasticity gives fresh hope to those suffering from addiction.
Beautiful, and 100%. So in that first paragraph, it points out, someone who had a stroke, a toddler who's autistic, a woman who had depression. They go into what I want to point out is those are acceptable reasons to seek therapy, and there's no judgments. Oh, you need to heal, you need to work on yourself. However, what I love about Dr. Gabor Mate is when you have a substance use disorder, or an addiction, you don't get that sympathy at all. You do not get any compassion. In fact, what he later points out in that clip is, they like to give you punishments, right? They like to give you this label of this is a person who is manipulative and, just a negative whole tone. And I know for myself, I lived through that. So with that added stigma, it was even hard for me to A, acknowledge I needed help, and then B, reach out because I knew that the stigma was on me. So I lived in the shadows for a long time with suffering. And what I do this podcast for and what I do now going on radio shows and other podcasts is we need to be loud about recovery to show that what you see in the media, 99, okay, maybe I'm over, I don't know the real percentage, is not accurate, or they're only going to show you one side of things. But what I love, this whole point tonight is to talk about, before we can even start with the how are we going to go at this? Western medicine, I got lots of medications and lots of pills, severe depression, anxiety. They never ever wanted to really ask me those questions of why. And it all comes down to trauma. And even if it's the little t's, it's something that, again, is a way that people have learned can help heal, or, not heal, but mask that pain. There's pain coming from somewhere, and a lot of it is for me, was emotional pain. And I love, so like one of the components of recovery that we've talked about a couple times on this show is the self-direction piece. For me, that was empowering when I felt that I could determine my own paths. I'm going to say there was multiple paths for me, but that I was able to get that ability to make my own choices and find other things outside of what was just immediately handed off to anyone who walked in whatever doors of whatever treatments. It wasn't this, people are different. There's a whole spectrum of where you could be at. So anyway, to get back on topic, Holly, now do you mind sharing? So would you say, because you let everyone know that you had a stroke, so how do you feel like life changed after that? And then after that, people's perception of you, what would you say your own experience was?
Yeah, so my stroke was in my eye, and so it was like a blood clot, but they call it a stroke.
Sorry.
And the thing was that I thought...
That's just an alarm.
I thought that it was just my eye, but when I tried to do some intensive typing, I realized my hands were backwards. My left hand was writing what my right hand was trying to write. and it was all garbage. I could not type. So something had happened in my brain that was more than just how I see things. I also can't see color very well anymore. And so the end result is that I have some damage in my eye that causes me to be irritated if I use it. So I have learned to try to not use it, and then the eye is there to alert me if something moves. If something moves, I can see it, but if it's static, I might not catch it. So I'm very, I used to worry, will people be able to tell if they look at me? That used to be a big thing. Then I remembered what my dad said, and he said, don't worry about you, just worry about them. If you worry about the other person, then usually it goes a lot better. Anyway.
So in your recovery now, you have 9 months, right?
Woo! 10 months. What's it, 10 months? 10 months!
Yes.
10 months!
I did give you the medallion. So do you feel like with your stroke, when did you have that?
Oh, it was a number of years ago. I actually had 2 of them. Over 6 years. 6 years ago. I think what's similar to me is that I had to learn how to do things again. There's one, you can talk about strokes and how, that person, if you just teach them things, they'll start to do things again, like walking and talking. Mm-hmm. And it's possible because you read about it. 20 years ago, we were talking about memory and synapse plasticity, but now it's neuroplasticity in the brain. And the discussion is more centered in, we know that if you teach things again, that there's either new ways that things are happening up there, new cells forming, or a different path is chosen. Something happens so that people can compensate for some kind of injury. I think there is I see how the recovering from an addiction does have similarities. Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting for Bridge to talk about that.
Well, how addiction treatment can harness positive neuroplasticity for long-term recovery. So I love this. It says, while brain damage was once regarded as permanent, now we know that the brain has the incredible capacity to recover from various traumas and injuries. If neuroplastic changes caused by substance use creates addiction, it's illogical that neuroplasticity holds the key to recovery. Just as those recovering from a stroke are capable of foraging new neural pathways, those whose brains have been corrupted by substance abuse can find similar benefits. I'm going to correct that. I did find similar benefits, and understanding the concept of neuroplasticity holds the key when applied to people in recovery from substance use disorder. So, like myself, okay, so what I like to, there's a lot of talk with the 12 steps, okay, and that I'm not just talking alcohol, I'm not just talking drugs. There's 12 steps for sex addiction, there's 12 steps for chronic pain, there's a key reason those 12 steps are in with all those groups is because what I think a lot of people I didn't realize for so long is the 12 steps is this wonderful opportunity to understand and get to the why. Okay? Yes, how is big in the big book, how honesty, open-minded, and willingness. And what I think a lot of people, and I went through a few sponsors, is they didn't want to. Well, thanks, Sally. That's my speaker assistant. They didn't want to really get into the why, right? It's all about how, and this is what I think what happened was, for me, I have a lot of trauma in my past, so much so that along with my substance use, my life, for more than half of my life, that wanted to even understand who I was as a person. And Oprah talks a lot about this. The human seeks that connection, and the only way to really connect on that level is to feel heard. And again, the why, 12 steps, it wasn't until I actually went through them with someone that I found that Marcy, shout out, really unconditionally loved me. And through the thick and thin of it, she just always gave me that safe, open space to be myself and realize that I could actually be this authentic person and let my wall down and be open with myself. In the 12 steps, when we finally were able to go through those authentically all the way through, I now see that those steps are in order for a reason, because it's a way to first look at myself and see what's going on with me and why. And then, at the end of those steps, for me, was this like aha moment of all the shit that I went through, all the trauma that I was born from, all the people that, just kicked me when I was down, all that pain and suffering could be useful. And even if it's just one person that connected with me, I felt like I had a value and a reason to continue to be here and live and give back and service and be loud and proud of recovery. But yes, neuroplasticity. So I know for me, that second piece, that second time I went into treatment, I needed to add DBT, and that was where I could understand why the brain does the things it does, the whole prefrontal cortex, understanding the emotional mind and the thinking mind. And I needed actual answers. I couldn't have faith again until I could really look inside myself and understand within myself. Once I started to get to that point, I could look to my higher power again, and I could start to begin to forgive myself, which until I did that, I couldn't even forgive myself until I could actually have answers of why I am the way I am. Does that make sense? I just rambled and stole the show. Sorry, go ahead, Holly. Anything else you want to maybe throw in there that you would agree or disagree with?
Well, I think that's perfect. So what we have is a story, and if you're an addict, then we also have in common the misuse of something, and then pain and all kinds of things, searching for something to make you feel better. Bert was talking about the 12 steps. There's this 12-step program. That is, first thing you do is say, I need to do something, because what I'm doing now is not working. It's not working for me. Mm-hmm. And it might be hurtful to others, and it's definitely not working for me, this addict thing. And Nothing Changes If Nothing Changes is the title of this Recovery 101 K.I.S.S podcast. And it's true, if you just keep going, you will, nothing's going to change. I think Einstein had a similar quote about that. But anyway.
Ooh, yeah, see if you can find it. Okay, so yeah, let's break that down. That's why I picked that title. I would hear these sayings over and over. They never made sense to me. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Ooh, okay, well, I already changed my job. Okay, I already changed my routine. Like, I'm making changes. Like, what the F are you talking about? So for me, when I got into the science of it, like neuroplasticity, and I understood that you can actually change the grooves in your brain, so if I make actual action-based changes every single day, then I can actually make a new path for myself. But a lot of people, and these are beautiful, sayings. However, if you don't sit down with that new person, and instead of just saying, well, nothing changes if nothing changes, for me, someone would sit across from me and say that and look like an asshole. I'm like, okay, well, explain that to me. I don't understand what you mean by that. You're sitting all high and mighty. It looks like you got something I want, but you're just going to make me figure it out, right? So that's where I would get so frustrated. Like I said before, I was a very angry person, but now for me, that's what, I like to be a guide or go through, any pathway really to recovery, is to allow a person to ask all those questions. I am so honored when someone shares something with me and asks those questions that are either personal to me or personal for them, because I can look at them and they know there's no judgments, there's no silly question, there's no hurtful question. I like to ask those questions that I don't know, because what do they always say? You don't know what you don't know. So finding that person to ask those questions is key. And, powerless, I never want to say I was powerless or unmanageable. How could I say any of those things until I could really be honest with myself? So, okay, we are moving along. Did you catch that first alarm, Holly? Did you like the music? That was just to let us keep interacting. It looks like a Facebook user said, "You're sober and smart. Thanks for sharing your courage, strength, and hope with others." Oh, the listeners are so pleasant tonight. I'm loving this. Okay, so I don't know why that alarm didn't go off, but we are going to go into the next segment of our show. So listeners, if this is your first time listening, there's 2 other segments to this show. And this next segment, I got to play. I have the fantastic sound effects, which unfortunately, Sally, can you go ahead and turn on the speaker again for me?
Power on.
My guest,
Bluetooth pairing.
my guest last week, we finally found.
Bluetooth connected.
Thank you, Sally. We found a sound effect that actually sounds like it's supposed to. So, Holly, if you could tell me what you think this sound sounds like. What does that sound like to you?
Sounds like flames in the fire.
Yes! Finally! So, listeners, this means it's the hot seat, Holly. You about to be on fire.
Our connection with
Oh, jeez. Okay.
only be
So, it is time for the hot seat. And what that means, Holly, is I'm going to ask you 3 hot and heavy questions. And they're just deeper questions that, you wouldn't normally ask someone maybe just meeting them or at the water cooler at work. Like, these are questions that are meant to be deeper in case anyone themselves out there are listening and something you say, they might actually be able to connect with and it might actually answer some questions within themselves. So that's what I find useful. And also, it's a great way for me to get to know you better. You ready? Keep in mind, only share what you feel comfortable. I will not kick you off the show if you don't answer the certain way. And these are meant to be open and general because however you perceive them, whatever comes to your mind, that's your answer. Okay, question number 1, Holly. What is the hardest rule you had following when you were a kid? Just get right up on that mic.
The hardest rule to follow. The hardest rule to follow was don't eat what we're going to make for dinner. So I'd come home after school and boy, did something look good and I might eat it, and then Mom would come home and Dad would come home and the other 2 kids would come home and everybody would be like, where did the dinner go?
So eating dinner before dinner time.
Yeah, eating other people's dinner. Definitely a winner. That's my answer.
Okay.
Sticking with it.
Interesting. So on our topic tonight, do you think that anything around that maybe affected you later in life? I know for me, that makes me think of the rules, a lot of rules that I found hypocritical in my childhood. I definitely affected how I parent. And one of the horrible rules that I hated as a child was you cannot leave the table until you clean your plate. Which, understandably made sense during times of maybe food is scarce, which never was the case. Or also, when you're making your own plate. I get that, my kids, I always say, what you put on your plate, that's yours. Like, make sure you eat that. You can get seconds later, but don't overdo it. But they would dish my plate. And so I had to eat what was on my plate, and I couldn't leave the table sometimes for hours until I ate whatever was put in front of me. Yeesh! So that was not fun. So would you say that you also had that rule, maybe, of don't eat dinner before? Did you have any snacking, no snacking before dinner? What kind of rules did you have for your kiddos?
Yeah. Well, for my kiddos, we had a pattern of behavior. So there was rarely a time where we said, okay, this is the rule. It was like things that we always did. So, I don't know. When I ate the dinner ahead of time, my family was going through financial troubles, and I think what I took from that is I'm always one step away from something. So I have like a survival instinct that's ready to kick in. And I don't know if my kids felt that. I don't know if they really ever felt that eating dinner before dinner thing.
Yeah,
That'd be
interesting.
fun to ask.
Well, and I know for me, food, I save food, you know. I love the Tupperware containers. Okay, wonderful. Question number 2, Holly. When do you feel your weakest? Or maybe we could say less confident. When, presently, do you say you feel your weakest? Or maybe not so confident?
Okay, so on the Myers-Briggs scale, I'm an INFP, and the I is introverted. And the test has shown I'm friendly and I'm try to be kind, but I am 60 out of 60 for being an introvert. So I feel my weakest if I have to discuss anything personal about myself, like when I'm sitting in the hot seat on your show.
I'm so sorry.
No, but it's okay. I've learned. And that, is one of the reasons I drank to begin with. It was, college, and I overcame social awkwardness and things like that by drinking. And then when I stopped drinking, I realized, hey, guess what? You do have some coping skills. Mm-hmm. And I actively worked on that. So that, like, if we're going to tie it into neuroplasticity, my brain, I've learned to do specific things to overcome my awkwardness. I read a book called Shyness by Philip Zimbardo, and it's all about what do you do, like specific actions to overcome awkwardness. And so 60 out of 60. Mm-hmm. I think there must be like some kind of psychological term for that, but you won't label me.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to take this test. I wonder where I'm at on that spectrum. Well, that's it, and that's what's that's what I love about some of the groups that I'm involved in, is we welcome the more weirder the better, awkward the better, too, but not mean awkward, I think I've never seen you mean, so I'll just say I don't know where that's from, but maybe you get grumpy, I don't know, I get grumpy days too, but I find it endearing. And you're hilarious. I don't know if you know this. Some of my friends that have met you, they're like, that Holly, she's pretty funny. She's good shit. I'm like, I know, I told you.
Okay. Funny, peculiar.
Yeah.
That's probably it.
We're not laughing at you, Holly. We're laughing next to you. No, just kidding. Okay, question number 3. Last question. You're doing great. Why do you think people judge you, or, I will say and, you can answer both these, or what do you judge someone on immediately? So why do you think people judge you off the bat? Or why do you judge someone off the bat immediately? What's just like a first thought? Humans were just judgmental creatures. So what do you think, what comes to mind?
Unfortunately, I already have like a deeper thought on that. So I've spent some time in my brain thinking about that. And my end thought is that people remember like how you made them feel. Somebody important said that, and I'm saying it based on what I've seen in life. Like, so initially you might feel uncomfortable about something, no matter what it is, what that person reminds you of, or the look that you thought you saw, or if they're talking about politics and it's not your lean, you don't lean that way, or whatever. So, but if you give them a chance and you help the communication so that you're listening, there's kindness, there's growth or understanding. In the end, I forgot what we were talking about. What are we talking about?
Judgmental.
Oh yeah, judgmental.
Judgmentalness.
So, yeah, I'm. The older I get, the more I am constantly amazed by other humans. There's so many things you can learn from people, and I prefer not to look at someone and have an idea, and I'm hoping that other people I interact with are thinking similar things. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Well, definitely in the recovery community and our recovery family, there's way more grace, I would say. But that's not always the case, okay? Downstairs, a couple people's I had immediate judgments on their egos and personalities there. Just walk away. Shut the door. Okay, anyway, Wonderful. Thank you, Holly. And yes, that makes me think of when I was really getting going on the Minnesota Recovery Connection, being a peer support. What somebody said that stood out to me was, people don't want to know how much you know, Bridge. They want to know how much you care. Woo! And that's what's crazy is, like, I am an overcarer. I way too much sometimes get way into people's recoveries. And another good piece of advice was, you can't want recovery more for someone than they want from themselves. But for me, that stood out because I realized, yes, I'm taking all these trainings. Yes, I'm learning all the different harm reduction and peer forensic and all these wonderful things. However, at the end of the day, the first thing I do now with my participants is give them that space to share and listen. And sometimes it takes months, sometimes it's initial. They can feel that my energy of, I just do it because I care. And let me tell you, I don't do it for the pay. Barely making it. So anyway, back on track. So just to wrap up neuroplasticity and simplifying that, again, step one is, you could lay out step one, but really for me, step one means you can't solve a problem that you don't have. Okay, I just heard that this last week, and that's fantastic. So if you aren't even willing to say, I got a problem, just forget trying to solutionize it, because for me, like recently, just the daily struggles, life on life's terms, I'm distracting. I'm fixing other people's problems because at the end of the day, I didn't want to admit that I'm about to be homeless myself, So finally admitting, I think it was Thursday, sent out a work email. Okay, give me all your resources. I'm about to be homeless, and it's for me. Which was okay. It was great. I got a list. I applied for some more things, and I got I got plan A, B, and C now, so I'm not freaking out. But they didn't want to really admit the depth of the problem. I just kind of hinted to, there's going to have to be moving. I'm going to be needing to move soon. I didn't really state what was really going on. Okay, last segment. Now, I warned Holly just as she walked in, but this is my favorite segment, to be honest. It's called Live Facebook Memes. And what that really entails is, hold on. I have sound effects for this one. These are sound effects encouraged by my daughter. When she was on here, she found these for me. I just love it, because it's going to be scary what we're about to do here. So this last segment is called Live Facebook Memes. And what that is, Holly, is I'm going to flash you about 8 to 10 memes that, for whatever reason during the week, I liked them. Now, this is something I just do at night when I'm laying in bed, I'm having downtime. And, some of them are very clever. So I take a screenshot, and now we're going to share. I'm going to share them with you. You can join in this joy fest. But like Facebook, you can comment. Or just give a thumbs up, or hearts, or laugh out loud, or angry, whatever your reaction is. But along with the viewers here now, I'm going to flash it to the viewers so they're going to be able to see. But I'm going to have you go ahead and give me your takes on the memes that have brought joy for whatever reason to my life. So here we go. I'm going to pull them up. I do actually put these in a specific order, just so you know. At least make sure to end with a positive one. Okay, so I'm going to stop this nice little banner so that nobody's distracted from. So listeners will be able to see this flash up on your screen. Beam number 1. Okay, go ahead and read that, and then describe the 3 different pictures there, Holly.
Don't be negative. Go out and enjoy life. Me. Oh, it looks like a sickle.
It's like the Grim Reaper.
It's the Grim
at the
Reaper.
Beach.
Perfect.
Yeah, trying to play volleyball and maybe go swimming or taking in
yeah.
the sun. So don't be negative. Go out and enjoy the day. So especially when you're not in a good place.
Right. So we have the Grim Reaper sitting on the beach under an umbrella. It's like, okay, I guess it all is who you are.
Yeah, where you're at your day.
Where you're at.
But I found that for mental health, especially wellness, especially if I'm not having a good day, that means I really need to get out of my element. And I find that eventually works.
That's a funny one.
Yes. Okay. Meme number 2, Holly. It's just words. Go ahead and read that one. I thought it was hilarious.
Okay. What's that word right there?
Oh, just read it. I think it'll make sense.
People think grass don't be wet in the morning. But it do. Oh, fine.
You gotta say it with this is a little
But it
slang
do.
there. People be thinking grass don't be wanted wet in the morning, but it do. Do is spelled D-E-W. It's a lighthearted one. I don't know why. It made me
And
laugh a
since I'm
lot.
an addict, I was thinking of grass, like, you know.
Oh, the other greener grass.
You were thinking green grass, weren't you?
I was just thinking.
Yes, I know.
Yes, just
I'm
lawn,
evil. I'm
lawn
the evil
care.
one.
Okay, so this was a little bit hard to see, but you got 3
Every-
pots of plants.
Oh, yeah, you do. I love plants. One of those is snake plant. Every plant has their own requirements in order to grow, and so do people. And they show 3 different kinds of plants, and from my eyeballs here, it looks like at least one of them is it looks like a sedum, and that one doesn't like water at all.
No
and
water.
Snake plant doesn't like water at all, but that other one loves water.
And one needs a lot of sun, and one
I'm
just needs
overthinking
cloudy.
this. I'm overthinking this.
Yes, but to simplify it, it's just
keep
like
it simple.
it's just like coming into recovery. You got that spectrum, right? So every person is not going to be able to follow some particular clinical treatment plan. You know, each person has their own foundation or their own soil, and it might be really rocky. It might have been really healthy for the most part. So you need to I like this because I feel like it. Oh, thanks, Sally. It does. It's very lighthearted and genuine, meaningful. Okay, meme number 4. This is a cute cat. I love cat
No,
ones.
It's a cat looking absolutely adorable. I mean,
Smiling.
it's really hard to find an ugly cat, but this one's really cute. Ask yourself, who can I make smile this morning? And then it says, Thik na not Han.
Hun.
Han
It's
is
a quote.
It is a quote, and I'm not good with the name, but I understand what they're saying. Think
love
outside of
that.
myself.
Right. Well, I've heard smiles are contagious, right?
Yeah.
But I like this one better, like making a point or an intention. Who can I make smile this morning, right? Going out of my way to have it be someone that I wouldn't normally make a point to make smile.
Yeah, and there's an experiment you can try on your own face. If you smile continuously, I think it's 2 minutes, you can change your brain chemistry, they say. So you can change your
Wow.
mood. Try
I
it.
have
Try
heard
it.
that.
Tell us. Is
Oh
it good?
my
Is that
gosh.
a good advice?
Yes. Okay. Here we go. This was kind of personal.
Okay, there's somebody covering their face like, and then
And
it's
she says,
me when I realized the man I had to explain common human decency to was
Wasn't-
not my soulmate.
wasn't my soulmate. So I'll be honest, that's a red flag. You know, I'm spending this time with a person, maybe doing some dating, hanging out, and then something happens, per se, their interactions with a waitress or maybe a cashier or just a regular person, delivery driver, and they were rude or downright disrespectful, and I have to explain why I'm not okay with that. And then my heart sinks because it's like, just I had to actually explain that it's not okay to mistreat anybody like that you're better than them or whatever. Yes, that's not going to work out. Unfortunately, before I'm going to fix them though. I'm going to teach them this is why what I meant when I went. If you don't know this shit at 40 years old, we got a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was at the restaurant the other day, and the person that we were with, it was a group. It wasn't my soulmate potential at all. I had not been dating.
State
But
that.
this person yelled across the restaurant, "I want a glass of water." And I thought to myself, "Did he really?" And I'm sitting next to you. Oh,
Yikes.
bad.
Yikes. Ooh, some people just don't have that common sense.
Not decent.
Ooh, scary. Okay, meme number 6. This one's more in depth, I think.
Oh my gosh, we have to think. 5 ways to not be used. Oh.
Number 1.
Believe patterns, not apologies. Don't fall in love with potential.
That's number 2.
Believe all red flags.
Number 4.
Know your worth.
Number 5.
Don't lower your standards.
What do you think of this one? There's a lot to it, actually.
Oh, I should keep this list right on in my pocket when
Right.
I go out dating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot to think about there. And I tend to be a dreamer, so, at red flags, I have to start paying attention.
I'm a romantic. I've
Yeah.
realized, unfortunately, that
romantic.
I can't live in fantasy land, and
Dang it.
I used to. Okay, so one thing, number one for me, believe patterns, not apologies. That's as simple as actions speak louder than words, right? Number two, don't fall in love with potential. Okay, you can't. I have to teach myself. I've had to teach myself, and it's just now I realize you can't ever change a person. You can never walk into something trying to change someone. However, if it's something that, you can reason with or work and grow on together, that's okay. But if it's something like I just talked about, so just rude to service people, no, I'm not going to waste my time with that. Three, though, so Sarah and I, she enlightened me. So believe all red flags. I would say this is incorrect a little bit. It's a little inaccurate in the fact of, she pointed out, Bridge, you don't need to red flag everybody and everything, okay, based on certain standards. You can set a flag them, okay? So say it's a white flag right now. It's just a surrender, give them a chance, but you put the flag up for awareness, right? Okay, that's just good common sense. It doesn't have to be a red flag, X, never gonna see you again. That could be your own intuition. Know your worth 100%. It's taken me 40 years to figure that out. But also, here's now, number 5 is particular, so I've been attempting possibly dating. And immediately, I'm 0 for 1, Holly, okay? Immediately asked this guy out, denied, for, reasonable reasons, whatever. Immediately, what does my first thought process go? Well, what the heck? I know at least 3 guys that have asked me out. Why did this guy say no? And maybe I immediately thought, maybe I need to lower my standards. So that was my first thought. But then it took me all of 5 or 10 minutes to realize that's old patterns for me. That's old ways of thinking that I'm not enough. F that, I X that, I realize, okay, no, the 3 guys I've not gone on a date with, just at this time, I realized they're at a different point in their life, right? I've been single for over a year now. I know one of them for sure just came out of a relationship. The other one just got his kid back. There's not in the same place at all where I'm at in my life. So, not that I'm lowering my standards, but now I just I finally have standards, Holly. I never had no standards before. Oh, you don't got a car? That's okay, you can use mine. Oh, you live with your mom? Sure, you can come stay with me. We'll just figure out a rent thing later. 6 months later, I ain't got no money. I'm pissed off. Why? Because I had no fucking standards, so it was hilarious. Anyway, we're moving on. Sorry, it's a little too personal. TMI. Meme number 7, Holly. Oh, this was hard to see.
Okay, atheist wins right to wear religious pasta strainer in ID photo.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
There's a picture, ID picture.
Yeah.
He literally has a pasta strainer as a hat.
Isn't that a pastafarian? Is that what they call those
So
people?
I've got to read the
Spaghetti people flying spaghetti monster.
Yes.
I can't read it.
I'm
'cause
going to
I
read
can't
it.
see that far.
It says, Australian atheist Nico Alm supports the, and this is underlined, Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, a joke religion conjured up by the atheists who say their make-believe stories are no better or worse than any traditional churches. In 2008, to make a point about his faith's sanctity compared to others, Alm asked to wear a pasta strainer on his head for his driver's license photo. Austrian citizens are only allowed to wear headgear in state IDs for religious purposes. So a spaghetti monster, parentheses pastafarian, argued that a colander is his religious headgear. What are your thoughts on that? This could be touchy.
My thoughts are that these are Facebook memes that struck you as interesting, and what the hell? Where'd you
Interesting.
find this one?
Interesting and hilarious. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay.
Good thing we don't look at the ads I get.
Okay, here we go. There's a dog looking at a flower. That's the first picture. What does it say?
It says, when someone compliments you and you don't know how to act.
And you don't know how to act. So picture number 2.
Okay,
and
so
picture
there's
number 3.
this dog. I have a dog that does the same thing. The eyes get super
Looking
wide,
weird.
and then you can see the white in the eye. So it's looking at this thing, and the thing
a
is a
flower.
flower. And yes, of course, the dog eats the flower. Totally eats the flower. When
So you
someone
want me to eat this? Take
When
this?
someone compliments you,
I don't
you
get
don't
it.
know how to act. Yes, absolutely.
Would you
It's
say-
totally perfect meme for that?
Right? Would you say you could maybe I don't know, connect with this at all? You guys just admitted you're awkward a little bit around people.
Totally awkward. Yes, I will eat the flower and everyone will notice.
Yes, and this is me. Someone gives me a compliment, I'm like, eh. Brene Brown's taught me to just say thank you.
Yes,
So
thank you.
I
I'll eat
literally,
the
there's the
flower,
awkward
okay?
pause, and I'm like, oh, thank you for the compliments. I'm just going to accept it. But then I say that out loud. I'm going to accept your compliment.
Yes, thank you. Thank you is much better.
Okay, last meme. Holly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for bearing with me. Last meme, here we go, inspirational.
Okay, it is a note card with some fingers holding it up in black writing. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. Read that again.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I keep reading this over and over and over again. If you don't make time for your wellness, definitely true. You know, we could go on and on. I've got 2 minutes, so I don't get to talk about my ideas on healthcare.
Well, yes,
But I hear what they're saying.
and illness, that's underlined. I mean, that could be at any capacity, right? So if I don't take time to get up and stretch in the morning, I don't drink enough water. I mean, this doesn't even have to go into, mental health. This could just be physical health. This could be spiritual health, right? It could be all kinds of things. But the reality is, if I don't sit down and make that time for myself, my own health, it will come out later. Like, I get so stressed out, I'll get like cold sores. Like, when a test comes up, or I used to get zits, now I get cold sores, or my back. If I'm so stressed out, I'm not sleeping right, things are going my way for like a week at a time, I'll get this horrible, awful lower back pain because I'll hold the stress in there. So these things now I know about myself, that I could do some more yoga and breathing and all these things, but if I don't make time for myself daily, they definitely will build up really quickly.
Do you have any comments or anything? I don't
Oh,
see.
final. Okay. Nope, no final comments. 2 viewers.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Again, I hope that listening to this, you get the main concept. And for me, the best answer, how I really started to make change, the first change I made was my environment. And not just where I was living, but where I was seeking recovery. I had to flip the script. Not because of those people, but just in that element, in that environment. That action change of removing myself and finding another place was my first step. The second step was I had all these good intentions, I had all these plans, these ideas in my head. I had to shut that down, stop thinking, just do. That's it, okay? People gave me suggestions, I did it. Whether it worked for me or not, at least I was doing these things and finding these answers for myself instead of reading in a book or waiting for this huge enlightenment to come, just doing the things was what worked for me. Holly?
I hear you. Second.
Okay.
I second it.
Second, your sister. All right, everybody. Well, have a good night. I hope you have a great week. I'm sending out good vibrations and energy to everybody. And I will see you on the flip side next week. Oh, I got inspirational music. I always want to forget it. I want to click the end button. Okay, and here's just beautiful, inspiring music. It's called Returning Home. And good night.